You're listening to The Ground Down, a podcast where we sit down with industry leaders and experts to discuss issues that affect the civil engineering industry. This podcast is brought to you by EHRA Engineering. Welcome. We hope that you enjoy the show.
My name is Jim Russ, and today with me is my colleague Sivaji Senapathi, who leads our traffic and transportation practice. Today's podcast guests are Waller County Judge Trey Duhon and Waller County Economic Development Partnership Executive Director Vince Yokom. Thank you very much, Judge and Vince, for joining us and participating in EHRA's second new podcast series called The Ground Down. We'll go ahead and get started with our session today. Judge and Vince, how are things with both you gentlemen, your families in Waller County? Judge, I'll let you start off.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you all for having us. First of all, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. We're doing great, really, in Waller County, all things considered. As of today, I think we've got a total of 29 confirmed cases of COVID-19. And I think of those, really, we only have about 10 active cases. And we've been pretty consistent with that number now for a few weeks. But people are doing really well. I've been really proud of the folks in Waller County. They've done a really good job in doing the social distancing and abiding by the protocols we've asked them to. Personally, we're doing fine. I think I'm just like everyone else. I could definitely use a haircut without a doubt. It's getting pretty shaggy. Boy band hair, I like to call it, in the morning when I get out of bed. It's ridiculous. But my wife and I, we're just like everyone else. It's you get to kind of a Friday, Saturday, and you're like, what do you want to do tonight? And then you realize, well, there's not really anything to do. You have to basically you're going to cook and sit at home, and we've been watching a lot of Ozark. So that's, but other, we're really, all things considered, we're doing okay.
How about you, Vince?
I can echo pretty much the same sentiments. Robin and I are pretty much at home as well. I have no hair to worry about, obviously. So instead, I decided to go ahead and grow a beard. Until we get through this thing, I'm just going to be a hairy guy and where I can grow hair. Our family, for the most part, is doing great. I'm very proud of the job that the judge and the commissioners have done so far in balancing the health issues as well as the economic issues with everything. Can't say enough about how these guys have had a really good blended approach and have done a great job. On a personal note, all of our family doing well, all three daughters. I do have one daughter who owns a hair salon, so obviously she's impacted, and I have another, and her husband, my son-in-law, has a business where he teaches kindergartners baseball, and so their businesses are basically gone for right now. So aside from those two personal stories, for the most part, we're doing pretty well, and just appreciate the blessings that we do have and have been able to continue so far.
Amen. I hear you. So yesterday afternoon, the governor made a big announcement. How was that news that the governor shared of reopening the state received by Waller County?
I think, Jim, for the most part, it was good news. I think a lot of folks in Waller County are definitely ready to start reopening and getting back to work and getting back to some sense of normalcy, whatever that might look like. I've been very, earnest in watching the governor and the steps they've taken. I think he's doing a really good job. I do think we have to be very deliberate and methodical in the way we go about reopening the state. I don't think anybody wants to see a resurgence of this virus or anybody put in harm's way. But I think we all understand now, as the data starts to come out, the impact on our economy is going to be tremendous. So to the extent that we can start getting some people back to work, people have to earn a living. They have to pay their bills. Unemployment is skyrocketing, and we've got to take steps to make sure that the cure is not worse than the virus itself. And so I think he's doing that in a very methodical way. Honestly, some people I know in Waller County probably would have liked it to be a little bit more open than what he's done, than what he announced yesterday. I know a lot of folks, especially, Vince mentioned the hair salons, and there's a lot of folks, small business owners, that are still greatly impacted, and now they have to continue to stay closed, and that's unfortunate. I hope it's only for 2 weeks, and then after that we can get those other businesses up and running. I'm encouraged by the restaurants and those things. 25%. Again, you got to trust that Governor Abbott is doing this, and he's got the council of a number of experts that I don't even really have access to, and that this is probably the best way to go about opening the state and making sure we continue to decrease the transmission of the virus at the same time. So for the most part, I think most folks in Waller County are on board and they're ready to do whatever they can.
Yeah, these are truly unprecedented times that none of us have ever seen before. Vince, knowing that, as the judge mentioned, as the governor said yesterday, that salons and other similar type businesses are still going to remain closed for 2 more weeks. It does show that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. How are your daughter and son-in-law faring with that news, knowing that their businesses are still impacted?
Well, I haven't had a chance to actually catch up with them after the governor's conference yet. I would think they would be encouraged, like anybody else who has a business that's been excluded to this point. But I support the governor in his position, what he's trying to do. I think he's doing a good job as best you could possibly do in these circumstances. Again, trying to balance public health with the need to get the economy back on track. It's just going to be a tough road to hoe no matter what you do. So, but I think, like you just said, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think there's encouraging words coming out of Austin. I'm excited that we're trying to get something going, and I look forward to working with the judge and anyone else that's working hard to make sure that the businesses get back up and running as soon as possible.
Amen. Well, I think we're all ready for that. Continuing on along those lines, Vince, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted county business, and how has it impacted attracting new businesses to the county, being that you're in the business of getting business for the county?
You know, Jim, so far, knock on wood, we've been doing pretty well. We've already sent 3 or 4 responses for information requests for prospects from the state and the Greater Houston Partnership. One is a medical products company that produces the N95 mask, ironically. We're working on we submitted for a 5G manufacturing facility, a food distribution facility, and we're working on one right now that's a 3D printing company. Those are the ones that are coming. In addition to those, we're actually still working with our development partners. Clay Developments has a potential Fortune 500 lead that we're working with right now to get them into the county. And then also with Medline's new facility popping up and Clay Spec building, we're looking at helping Igloo consolidate all of their inventory here into the county. I have spent time on the phone with Goya, Igloo, talked to the Medline guys. Most of all of our big employers are doing fairly well, with the exception of the oil and gas. I know I talked to Bob Nichols at a Legacy, and he's getting hit pretty hard through his business. I think it lay off several people, around 70 people or so. Mm-hmm. So right now, in terms of the impact, I mean, we're seeing opportunities continue to move forward. Timelines, however, are blurred. No one's really going to know when they're going to start doing things, when they're going to ramp up, when they may come in for site visits. All that whole process with the social distancing has been impacted. But as far as lead generation and activity, I'm very happy. And I think it has to do a lot with the fact that we prepared well to market our county over the last few years. We, as you know, being our board of directors, we have put in our foreign direct investment program. We've been working on trying to solicit leads internationally. And I'm hoping that the international community will react appropriately to this incident in regards to China, and perhaps look at this as an opportunity to bring back some of these industries. So to ease the unemployment, we can bring back opportunities to the United States, bring back manufacturing, bring back distribution, bring back these opportunities to help those folks who have lost their job around the country. So I'm hoping that we'll see an increase in economic activity as soon as we understand the total health impacts. So as of right now, we're doing fairly well. I did get the latest unemployment figures. We're at about 6.5% unemployment, assuming about a 20,000 member workforce. This time last year, we had about 100 people file total from early March to around early April file for unemployment. And just recently in 2020, that same time frame, we've had a little over 1,100 file for unemployment, which is about a 1,200% increase in unemployment filings in Waller County. I've been working closely with our workforce folks to try to stay on top of what those numbers are. And when you look at that, that's a fairly significant impact. But overall, I think for as attracting companies, we're still doing fairly well. I don't expect anything really necessarily to happen over the next few months until it's a clear pathway forward in terms of reopening all businesses, but I'm encouraged.
Yeah. How is Williams Industry doing, knowing that the oil market, as you mentioned, took such a hit? Are they doing okay? Because I know they're a pretty good anchor in the county as well.
I haven't spoken with them. Just spoke with Bob Nichols at a Legacy. And I'm just using him as sort of using inductive reasoning. If he's hurting, I'm sure everyone else is hurting as well. Yeah. Fortunately, we have a fairly diverse economy out here. We like the Houston region, a lot of it is oil and gas, but fortunately, we have some other ones like Igloo and Goya that are not tied to the oil and gas or the price of oil specifically.
Right. Judge, how is the court reacting, knowing that what's happening in our economy, in order to help attract the businesses to come to the county? What has the court been thinking about?
Well, primarily the court's focus has been on the near term and focusing on what we needed to do as a county in terms of addressing this public health emergency. And so really the focus has been on that primarily. I think now we're kind of shifting that focus a little bit more to the economics. Obviously, Vince continues to do what he does, and we're still open for business and willing to work with good community partners. I mean, we've got a lot of projects ongoing. We've got some in the pipeline. I think the long-term impact, we'll just have to wait and see how that kind of shakes out. I still believe Waller County is the place that a lot of folks want to be because of our location, because we've got space and there's room to grow out here. So I think that's going to be a big positive for us going forward. I think the economic impact that you're going to see in some areas may not be as extensive in the Waller County area, but the extent of which we're just going to have to see how that plays out over the next few months. We're still positioned and prepared to work with any corporate partner that wants to come in and make Waller County its home, assuming that it fits with what Waller County is trying to do. So far, I think we've done an excellent job of getting community partners that really fit with what we want to have here in Waller County. Not as much heavy industrial or, environmentally friendly green companies that want to work, that are like Waller County, want to make sure we do everything we can to protect our resources. And I think those companies we have, and I think we're going to continue to do that. There's no reason why that's going to change looking forward.
Gotcha. Moving on along those lines, tell us more about what it's like being the leader of a roughly 500 square mile county and with a population of about 50,000 people, struggling with this once in a lifetime pandemic, which we hope it's only once in a lifetime. How has closing down of the larger surrounding counties in an effort to stop the spread of this virus impacted the decisions you've made for Waller County?
Well, yeah, I tell you, I don't want to give you too much information because then that would ruin my book. But no, I'm joking. This has been just when you think you've kind of seen it all. I mean, I saw 5 floods in the first 3 years. I've dealt with the public media crisis and so forth, and now we have a pandemic on top of that. And honestly, being county judge of a county like Waller County, it has its challenges, but it also has its advantages. I will say this, the advantage that Waller County has had, we always talk about the fact that we're one of the most rural counties that's adjacent to one of the largest metropolitan counties in the state of Texas. Well, in this pandemic, that really worked to our advantage, to be honest, because when it came, we obviously did not follow suit of some of the larger counties to our east and south in some of the measures that were taken. And that's because we really didn't need to. We don't have the density that you see in Harris County. When you look at the number of people we have per square mile, it's far, far lower than what you have in Harris County and Fort Bend County. I like to joke, I tell people Waller County invented social distancing. That's the whole reason most of the people are out here, is because they want social distancing. So that's been a huge advantage. Social media has played a big part, honestly. I also like to say that it's like having 50,000 children, and you got to make sure they're all taken care of. They have what they need. They have the information that they need. We've really tried to do a good job by making sure we keep those folks updated primarily through social media with Facebook and Twitter, both through my pages and then also our Office of Emergency Management. And honestly, that's been extremely well received. I think most of the folks really appreciate that. They appreciate the information. They feel like they're getting good and accurate information, reliable information from the county on a daily basis. And honestly, because of that, I think we haven't had a lot of issues that you've seen elsewhere. People have worked together, even as we saw shortages of paper towels and toilet paper in Waller County, you really saw people kind of work together and let people know, hey, if you really need toilet paper, I've got some, I'll get you some, and the discussions on social media and so forth. And so we've really worked together as a community, and I've been really proud of that. And I think we've done a good job, but it has been challenging. I mean, doing the daily updates, I'll tell you one thing that's missed in all of this, I cannot emphasize this enough, is the sheer volume of information that is coming at us on a daily basis. People really do not understand the hundreds of emails that I get about different measures being taken, the science, the data, what the department of whatever you want to call it is doing in regards to their policies and procedures. I mean, when you start multiplying that amongst all the different state agencies and local agencies, oh my gosh, that's more overwhelming than anything, because you come in the morning and by the end of the day, I mean, your brain is tired because you've just been trying to take in and process so much information on a daily basis. And that's not like anything I've ever done. I mean, if I make an analogy to the floods, it's the same thing when you have a flood. It's a lot of information that you've got to deal with and make decisions on the fly and do so quickly. But usually with a flood or a weather event, you're talking about a 3 or 4 day, 5-day event. We're going on what now, 6 weeks or more that we've been on lockdown, and every day is like that. Every day is just exhausting. You really have to prioritize and make sure as a leader and as an official that you continue to do the things to keep yourself healthy, get rest, and eat regularly, because if you don't, you'll forget. I mean, you literally just go through the whole day without eating a meal, and if you don't get enough rest, you're not going to be able to function the next day. So it is a different reality, that's for sure.
I guess it brings up some memories of that old Bill Murray movie, Groundhog Day.
Right. Yeah, over and over again.
As I've mentioned several times, being a co-leader of an organization with a phenomenally smaller footprint than you, as I've shared with many people in my almost 35 years in the business world, my business manual ended at economic recession. There was no chapter on national pandemic, so there is one now. So
right, exactly.
We're all better for it. So I'll toss it over to my colleague Sivaji for the next couple of questions.
Good afternoon, Judge Duhon and Vince. Thank you for joining this podcast this afternoon. I have a couple of questions. First, for Judge Duhon. We hear that the strain on our supply chain will create opportunities for more warehousing facilities. How can Waller County capitalize on this possibility? That's my first question. Question number 2 is, how will the new rail-served industrial development at the corner of Highway 6 and 290 position Waller County for the possible warehousing facilities opportunities previously mentioned? Yeah.
Well, obviously this is something Waller County has kind of obtained a niche when it comes to distribution centers and warehouses, we become a kind of a go-to spot, especially on the west side and northwest side of Houston. It has more to do with location than anything else. As they say, you know, if you're going to prosper, you must be located on a trade route. Well, we've got I-10 on the south end, and we've got 290 on the north end. So it definitely puts us in an ideal position to benefit from those type of warehousing and distribution facilities. Highway 6 and 290 specifically, that's obviously everybody knows that's a major crossroad. From there, you can continue on to Austin, Brenham, north, you go to College Station. And so you can really, Hempstead is ideally positioned to benefit. And this rail facility is going to be ideal for that purpose, to be able to bring in products on those rail lines and then distribute them in a number of directions is going to be not only good for Hempstead, but for Waller County as a whole. So it's in our roundhouse. It's something we do very well. And that particular location is ideally situated for that.
Vince, you have any thoughts?
Well, as you know, working with us on the Woods Road project and other ones down in the south end of the county, we're seeing a substantial amount of expansion with industry, specifically warehouse and distribution. And that has caused a little bit of a mobility crunch, as you're well aware of. We still continue to market to and solicit and are successful in attracting those particular facilities. But in the context of this pandemic, what I'm expecting to see, as I said earlier, I'm hoping to see anyway, is a return of industry back to the United States as a way to help offset some not only the unemployment, but also to continue the growth here in Waller County. Obviously, to have distribution is preceded by manufacturing. And if we can couple those two things together here in the county, I think we'll be even more successful. So I expect us to continue that. It's like, as I said earlier, we're working with Clay Development on a potential Fortune 500 company looking to put a distribution center here along Interstate 10. And we've been very successful, obviously Medline here, Igloo and so forth. Regarding Highway 6 and 290, that particular facility has a lot of potential. Obviously with the rail there, it's going to be one of the first real multimodal types facilities that we have in the county with they have the rail service to the actual users, and they have the transload facility so that folks in the adjoining areas could actually come and on and offload materials there as well. Obviously, it's in a great location along the 290 corridor, Highway 6 going north toward Dallas and points north, Waco, et cetera. We expect that to do really well. We're in the middle of trying to put together our first potential TERS in Waller County, which will be in partnership with the city of Hempstead, and it will include that park as a way to help facilitate the developers. So we hope that this will be maybe online here by the end of the year with the pandemic and these health issues. Obviously, that's caused a little bit of a crunch in the schedule, but we're looking forward to seeing this thing go through. Hopefully by the end of the year. As I said earlier, time schedules and time frames have been really moved around because of all this, but it will be a substantial addition to the county's ability to attract warehouse and distribution and logistics. That is one of our four core industries that we target for. Jim, as you know, being on our board of directors and our strategic plan, and Judge, our strategic plan has logistics in there as one of the industries that we feel like we're best suited for with the I-10 and 290 corridors. That's proving to be the case. So the key here is going to be balance. While we like distribution, we need it, has tremendous tax capabilities, but we also want to have manufacturing as well with it. So we're going to be looking for both those.
Yeah, that's kind of takes us to the next question. Is speaking of the previously mentioned rail serve industry development, please share any updates on the status of the expansion of 290 through Hempstead. How will this new development impact the intersection of your Highway 6 and 290? Then this new development will definitely have an impact on the road infrastructure in the county. So how will Waller County preparing for that increased mobility demand?
Well, obviously, you know, one of the things that we've been doing now for the last 2-3 years is looking at those types of issues. We worked with Houston Galveston Area Council on we put together a $500,000 mobility study that we had all of the cities, municipalities, and the county all put in matching funds. That mobility study has now been wrapped up and finalized, and it's been approved. We've updated our thoroughfare plan. My understanding is several weeks ago, though, the mobility plan was also approved by the TPC, Transportation Policy Council, and has now been incorporated into the larger regional plan. I've had specific conversations with TxDOT recently. In fact, I met with them several weeks ago in regards to the Wolf development, which is right outside of Waller on the north side of 290, close to 362, between 362 and Muse. And we actually had a good discussion, and I was really encouraged to hear that TxDOT is really already moving forward with plans to expand 290 through Waller County. As you know, they've expanded 290 all the way up to Field Store Road, basically up to the Buc-ee's there in Waller. I've always wanted that expansion to continue so we can have the capacity to handle additional traffic, especially anything that might be generated by that rail facility there at 290 and 6. In addition, and we'd like to see that expansion just go ahead and continue all the way through Waller County, not just to Hempstead, but go ahead and continue past the river. Highway 6 from Hempstead heading north, I think that's being looked at also for additional expansion. Really, all the roads in Waller County are 1488. TxDOT just had some meetings, public meetings regarding some expansion and straightening of that particular road. So it's really happening all over the county. I-10 is under expansion as we speak. So I was encouraged to hear that. And of course, the intersection there at 290 and 6, anyone who's ever been through there on a game weekend, either for A&M or University of Texas, knows that can be a real problem spot. And so that intersection needs to be addressed, and hopefully especially a flyover going from 290 up to Highway 6 heading north would probably be something that would really help that situation. And they are looking at that as well. So that's all going to be something that I think is going to happen really probably sooner rather than later. A lot of times with transportation planning, when you start talking about it, it's really probably 20 years away. I think it's going to happen much, much sooner than that.
Vince, do you have anything to add?
Well, clearly the biggest immediate impact is going to be the 18-wheelers coming in and out of the facility. I would expect at some point we're going to be able to have to put a controlled access across Highway 6 there going into the facility. And I don't know if you guys know any good engineering companies we could hire to do that. I don't know.
There might be a few.
Yeah, maybe we should hire maybe that's our first step, is hire EHRA to fix that problem. But clearly that's a state road. I don't know how much the county is going to have say on how that actually gets done there. But the immediate thing I'm pretty confident is it's going to be a little bit of a safety issue, I believe, with those 18-wheelers coming out. Fortunately, the speed limit drops right in that area, which hopefully if everyone's obeying the speed limit, they'll slow down a little bit. Hopefully it won't be such an impact. But I look for some short-term problems actually before, as the judge said, transportation planning is such a long approach. We're going to need to maybe have some short-term approaches out there as well.
Vince, did you notice any reduction in traffic or anything in Brookshire with all these distribution centers because of COVID-19? Did you see any impact?
Yeah, there's a tremendous reduction in traffic in general all over the county. And we were just down there the other day checking out the new Ross distribution center. And it was a lot easier, I have to admit, getting around than it usually is with all the 18-wheeler. But the businesses are still working. I said Igloo's still going. The Ross distribution is just going like crazy right now. They've got a lot of the building envelope pretty much put together. But yeah, it's different, no doubt about it. But when it returns, we need to be ready. And as you and I have discussed in the past, trying to get some of those roads fixed, and particularly Woods Road between 90 and 10 is going to be heavily impacted with the Empire West development. Twinwood to the south, it's just going to be a tremendous problem if we're not careful, if we don't get those roads. Thank goodness we have the Waller County Road Improvement District helping us with Woods Road on the south end of I-10, and we just have to tackle the north end. And I do understand, I think Judge may know better than I with the transportation planning, but I think Highway 90 is on TxDOT schedule for widening at some point here pretty soon as well. So given that and a couple of other items we're trying to fix down there, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. But short term, yeah, it's tough down there.
Yeah, in fact, one of the meetings, I had couple of meetings with TxDOT. One was on the Wolf Company development. We also had a meeting regarding the expansion of Highway 90 between Katy and Brookshire. So yeah, that is something that is also going to happen really soon. And we do have a lot of facilities down there, and so the truck traffic is considerable. And so, it creates, the growth is great, but it definitely puts a strain on the infrastructure, and you've got to be able to respond to meet those needs.
Right. Jim?
Well, as y'all mentioned earlier, and we're talking about the traffic and the infrastructure and the strain and whatnot, obviously we're seeing a little bit of quite a bit of a lull because of the times, but hopefully that will change. We'll get back to, as Patrick Jankowski said in his update just over lunch, he'll gauge the relative success of our comeback by virtue of the time it takes for him to drive from his house on the west side of Houston to downtown. So, by virtue of Vince, what you said, if you going down to the south end of the county yesterday and driving around and checking out some businesses, you got around a lot easier than you had before. We all know that will change. But, one of the things that, Judge, you had mentioned earlier about, the tremendous assets that I personally believe, just being from this part of the state and growing up in these regions, Waller County is just tremendously positioned for, as you mentioned, Vince, logistics, and for the distribution and warehousing facilities and whatnot. So I think, I'm excited for what's to come. I'm, not happy for what we're in, but excited for the opportunities that are going to result from it. So with that being said, Vince, what opportunities do you see coming to Waller County resulting from any fears of being in a larger, more congested city like Houston? As the judge said, Waller County, social distancing was invented in Waller County. So what are your thoughts as far as the possibility of folks leaving the larger cities and coming out to Waller County in order to enjoy a more spread out way of life?
Well, clearly that's a possibility. My personal thoughts are I don't expect folks just to uproot and move out by the droves. Pardon me, sorry. I would think until we really know how the pathology of this particular disease is going through and ultimately terminates, or however it ends up running its course, I don't know that people are really going to make real radical moves right now. What I would anticipate possibly would be retirees and the older generation maybe moving out into Waller County and other areas. If there are families, they have children, they're working close by, I don't think they're going to want to uproot their children and move them to a different school district necessarily. So I don't think it's going to be, I hope it's not a knee-jerk reaction. I hope people just sort of take a look at how this thing plays out and make decisions for their family. Obviously, we're in a good location for that, should that happen. But I do see maybe the retirees come in this direction. Maybe that seems to make more sense to me.
So then on that prediction that Dr. Mark Dotzer with Texas A&M had made about 2 or 3 weeks ago, his prediction was that the outlying communities are going to experience tremendous growth as a result of this fear. So your thoughts are it would be more of the mature age group rather than the younger age group?
I mean, you think about it rationally, it makes more sense. If someone were to react based on what the information we have today, how this disease is progressing, the pathology of how it is, based on that it does affect older citizens, I would think that that's a rational move. Obviously, if Dr. Dotzer has his own opinions and he thinks that's what's going to happen, surely he's respecting the community, and that's a good possibility. I wouldn't think it would happen all at once. Number one, we simply don't have the residential facilities here to accommodate, even if they did want to come out. And so we have that to contend with, as it were. So in the interim, like I said, I feel comfortable in saying that if I were an older person and retired and maybe concerned about the pathology of this thing, then I would consider moving out of a dense area if I didn't need to be there. But for families, I think it's going to be a little bit slower transition. Will it happen eventually? yes, this is going to be in everybody's memory for a really long time. And I think they're going to see a lot of people reacting, and a lot of people maybe trying to move out further to the suburbs and surrounding counties. I just don't see it happening immediately. I don't know what his timeline, Dr. Doter's timeline was when he discussed that topic, but I'd be interested in knowing that. I just don't see it happening right away.
Yeah, I don't think that he was intending to think that it was going to happen immediately, but I think bigger picture, say like within the next decade, it'll still, with the push recently of more urbanization going on, I think what he was really kind of more thinking along the lines of is that people are going to rethink that urbanization type of a mindset and start kind of trying to spread out a little bit. So,
well, one of the things, as you know, in our subdivision review, we were already social distancing by creating lot sizes and so forth. So once again, Waller County is really forward thinking, right? We're forward thinking. We see these things coming miles away, right? Just kidding, obviously. So we're trying to do what we can to create good environments for folks, whether they want to live in a subdivision or they want to have a small acre or two of property, whatever it is. We do try to make it, as the judge mentioned earlier, consistent with the values that we have out here in the county, and that is to protect our natural resources to the greatest extent possible. And again, trying to balance the economic needs of developers and builders and those folks who will be coming out here and building these great facilities for us. But as I said earlier, it won't happen immediately. We do have some great things happening right away, at least on the books that are being proposed, and we'll just see how that turns out. But I'm excited, as far as what we've tried to do with our subdivision regulations to make that even more enjoyable for folks coming out.
Jim, I would add to that. The one thing that Waller County, before the pandemic, we already had quite a few people moving out this direction as it was. And I think when you talk to most people, they were coming out to Waller County for various reasons. Some of it was a little bit more elbow room, so to speak. And I think you can see that reflected in the property appraisals and values that have continued to go up substantially in Waller County. You've got developers like Land Tejas, 7,000 rooftops that are now coming. They're not only they're here. They're building houses as we speak. So you already had that even before this. It wouldn't surprise me if, at least even on a subconscious level, some people start thinking, I need more room. I want more breathing space. I don't want to be on top of everybody else. I mean, that obviously, a lot of people who live in Houston probably have never had to think about that until you get to a pandemic, and then you're concerned about every single person around you. So it would not surprise me if that doesn't lead to an increase, but it's going to bring some huge challenges with it as well. And we're of course, everything we do in Waller County is trying to be proactive. We're trying to do strategic planning. But I'll tell you, and especially now with this pandemic, you've got people that are now probably going to figure out, not just people, but companies that are going to figure out that a lot more of their employees can work from their homes than ever previously expected. You're going to have some companies may rethink whether they have to have an actual office building. And so, folks are going to have that in the back of their mind. They can work, but, with Waller County, the thing is they can work from home if they have a good internet connection. And so that's a huge challenge in Waller County. Broadband access in Waller County, it is something I've been talking about it was identified in our strategic plan as something that needed to be addressed. I've been talking about it now for months. This pandemic has highlighted that. I really hope, and this is my sincere hope, and if there's any congressmen or representatives or officials that are above my pay grade, I hope they're listening. With all this funding that's coming down, especially from the federal level, I really hope they take some of that money and set it aside so we can get better broadband in rural counties, because we are now live in a world, in a reality where you have to have good internet access, whether your kids are trying to do their lesson plans, you're trying to shop online, or you're trying to work from your house. You've got to have a good internet connection to do all of that. And that's the one thing Waller County we need more of, and that's broadband access. So there are some challenges to all of that.
You know, one of the things that we as us as a business have determined, and I've pretty much focused in on two of the most notable uh, opportunities that are going to come from this time are exactly what you're saying, Judge, of working from home. It has definitely taken those who might have been a little leery about a work from home type of an environment or program and has just confirmed that, man, it really does work. It might not be 100% efficient, but it's darn close, and I think it's close enough to where we can survive. The other thing is the advancement of exactly what we're doing here today, and that is video conferencing.
Yep.
You know, it's funny, I was making a comment earlier that 2 weeks ago, the video quality on these video conferences was incredible. I've noticed a slight degradation over the last couple of days, and I think it's just because there's more of us that are doing these. So, but you know,
Absolutely.
got to look at the good that comes out of the bad. So,
I agree.
Sivaji, I'll toss it over to you.
Sure, Jim. Thank you, Jim. So given the circumstances, you know, for the last couple of months with COVID-19, I'm sure there's a lot to do coming months. So where do we both see Waller County in 6 months, 12 months, or even 2 years post-COVID-19? And the next question is, what do you anticipate being the major funding sources for mobility in the county?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I honestly have not had the time to sit down and visualize where Waller County is going to be in 6 months, 12 months, or even 2 years. Given the new reality, I hope within 6 months, I hope there's a vaccine, to be honest, so we can get back to some sense of normalcy. 6 months, you know, and this is something we're having ongoing conversations right now on the county leadership level. Preparing, you know, we're about to get into a new budget cycle. So what kind of impact is this going to have on Waller County? Now, I will tell you this, we've been very good so far. I think as of last week, and we looked at, you know, what has Waller County really, what are our expenses to date in dealing with this virus? And as of last week, we were about $30,000. Most of that being IT costs to make sure our employees had the capabilities to work from home, laptop computers and hotspots. A lot of it was just time. We've had a lot of overtime with our IT department, and also making sure we had officers out there responding to complaints about social distancing issues, et cetera. So I don't really see a huge, based on where we are now, I don't see a huge difference in as far as the county is concerned 6 months from now. Hopefully we've gotten past this where we've reopened the economy and things are starting to roll, and we're working hard. Hopefully we don't, you know, the unemployment starts to come back down a little bit as people get back to work. 12 months from now, that gets us into next year. That's going to be a new budget cycle, and I think it remains to be seen exactly how this situation is going to impact us. I mean, obviously from the county standpoint, our primary source of revenue is property taxes. We're not reliant on sales taxes, not like some of the municipalities are. And I don't see short term that having a huge impact on property taxes. Now, 2 years, you know, as the real estate market reacts to this, I mean, we've already heard of, you know, it's harder to get a loan now. There's not a lot of liquidity out there and so forth. And what is that going to translate into? And generally when people are in these situations, they don't go shopping for a new house, you know, or look for a big expenditure. They usually pull their expenditures back and kind of keep it under control. So, but again, you weigh that with the fact that we are positioned to where we are, and there's still going to be people looking to probably move out towards Waller County, either for business or for residential. So I don't know if I see substantial changes for Waller County in the 6-12 months or 2 years. Because, and I think fortunately, because of the planning we've done to date, which has put us in a really good position to probably deal with some of these challenges. I hope 2 years from now, if we have this discussion again, I'll be happy to say that we've got broadband access all over the county. That's what that would be nice. That would be great if I'm able to say that, because I know that will definitely help a lot of folks that are having challenges right now as we speak. But we'll take it step by step. This next budget cycle, I definitely think the county's going to probably pull back quite a bit. I'm already in my mind thinking about the communications to our department heads, and probably, I know a lot of folks are hurting. I know there's a lot of folks that have been impacted economically, people out of work. So I think the county has to respond to that and do as much as we can to try to keep property taxes at a level that most people can live with. And that's hard because, appraisals are about to go out. I think Fort Bend County had a quite substantial increase in their appraisals. I don't know if Waller County is going to be nearly that bad, but it definitely doesn't come at a good time for a lot of folks. So the one thing we can control is the tax rate and the expenditures at the county level. And I think we're really going to have to get into a mode where we're going to have to really concentrate on what we need to spend the money on, the needs that have to be met, and trying to be conservative at least over the next year, maybe even into next year, depending on how long the economic impact is from this event.
Vince, do you have anything to add to it from the economic development point of view?
Yeah, I would for this next 6 months, I wouldn't expect much to change. I do, however, think it's going to be incredibly competitive once this is resolved one way or the other within the next year, maybe the next 2 years. I believe the communities that are going to do well, those are continue to compete well in the economic development sphere. We have to continue to do what we've been doing, which is offer incentives for the right opportunities, be aggressive in our incentives, because we're going to be competing. There's going to be, as the judge just said, there's a lot of people having hard times. There's a lot of communities, many communities that may not have ever gotten involved with economic development will now do so simply because they want to be able to attract more industries and continue to build their economic base. So I see it for the next 6 months, not a big change. Next 12 months, probably not as big of a change. I almost see kind of a boomerang effect 2 years from now, because right now people have had budgets. These capital projects are done a year in advance. We may see a lag in 2 years once all these wave of projects have come through. Maybe quite the opposite effect of what maybe some people think. But in the near term, as long as we continue to compete, our partnership structure stays strong, we can continue to do our job. I think we're going to be able to see, we're going to do well. Short term, not a big change. We're going to continue to do what we're doing marketing wise, but we're trying to get a little bit more aggressive is my personal thought on moving forward.
Right. So I have there's actually two questions here, kind of goes with the previous question. This is for Judge Duhon. In retrospect, how do we better prepare for an episode like this in the future? For example, you kind of already mentioned addressing the broadband. I mean, that's probably one aspect of it. I'm sure there's many other aspects probably you may be thinking of. And the question one is, what are the lessons learned so far from this pandemic? And the question number two is, what are the silver linings, good things came out of this pandemic?
Well, obviously, as far as preparing in the future, and I've already touched on this, more broadband access to the county will definitely help. Having been through this, I mean, it will definitely help us in terms of our response, knowing, in terms of, getting testing sites, the needs that we express to the state. We'll be better prepared having gone through this. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. I will say this, that the one thing about this pandemic that cannot be underestimated is the number of paradigms that are going to be broken. thinking that we have to do things a certain way or this is the way it needs to be. And now, we realize it doesn't have to be that way necessarily. I mean, working from home, less commuters on the road. It could, it's going to be interesting to see how traffic is impacted by this going forward. If companies decide to use things like Zoom and the technology to do more things from remote locations. So that remains to be seen. But what we have seen, I think, all over the world is we've seen the environment and just the sky clear up because nobody's driving anymore, and that's amazing. So and that could have huge impacts for our environment. There's folks out there. I think this pandemic, believe it or not, has done more for the environment in a few weeks than what a lot of people have tried to do over decades, to be honest. So there's definitely a lot of lessons. Hopefully, I hope a lot of people have taken advantage of this time to spend more time with their family, to play board games and have more conversations. Of course, I think there might be a few more divorces as a result of this pandemic. But there's definitely some silver linings and some lessons to be learned. And the one thing I look at it is it creates an opportunity for ingenuity. So people that can figure out, for example, when it comes to if you have a restaurant, curbside service, delivery service, thinking out of the box, thinking of different ways to meet needs when it comes to shopping and it comes to all of these kind of things. I think you're going to see a lot of that, and I think a lot of it will stick. And so it's going to change the way we do things for a long time after this pandemic's over. And I think that could have some huge positive results and impacts in our community. So some of that, it's hard to say what all those are going to be, but I definitely know that there's going to be some positive stuff that's going to come out as a result of all this.
Yeah, Vince, any thoughts?
Well, I think for me, I think on a deeply personal level, one of the things I hope that comes out of this is that people will appreciate the relationships they have, because now that we are separated so much, I think it's important to know that we need to savor every moment that we have with our loved ones and with our people that we work with, respect, comrades, all of our associates in business. A lot of those things we've obviously taken those for granted. Now those are kind of going away. So I'm hoping that one of the things that happens is that we begin to appreciate the relationships, which are vitally important, not only to life, but in business as well, as a silver lining. We do have some of the greatest minds on the planet here in Houston. I believe that we'll ultimately come up with a solution to this thing. When it happens, who knows? But the medical advancements, I think they're going to happen. And as Judge said, the ingenuity as a result of all this. The United States is known for using its gray matter to do creative things. So who knows really what the ultimate things are going to be. But I think, you're going to see a lot of positive innovation, whether it's, like I said, just simple curbside, changing your business processes to implementing technology, becoming more efficient, things you have to do now to be able to survive, which can be a good thing in the long run. Unfortunately, I hate the fact that we have to go through this in order to realize some of these things, but I think we'll end up fine. I just think we're going to get through this, and we're going to do it with flying colors.
Right. I agree. And I do think there'll be a work-life balance matter. It depends on which industry you are. I mean, maybe it may be benefiting certain employees working from home and their flexibility. I mean, we have this flexibility working through internet, and we are fortunate having state-of-the-art technology here. We are able to do most of the work from home, even team meetings and all. I mean, it greatly benefited in the sense it may change things that we do in the future. I mean, how we go. I mean, for good. I know in our industry we still can't replace the face-to-face meetings, that interaction, but it also adds a little bit flexibility. Having this wonderful technology, how we do things going forward. Having said that, I mean, just a couple of comments. I mean, I've been watching you, Judge and Vince, for the last several years. My involvement with Water County, I see both of you like a visionaries. I mean, I'm just saying this from my heart. I think Vince, from economic development point of view, have a great vision for Hollis, Waller County. I mean, even Judge, I watch every time when you give luncheons, the state of the lunch, and even Commissioner Court, I see you're a true visionary for the Waller County. I really appreciate a lot of respect for both of you. Having said that, Jim?
Thank you, Sivaji. One of the questions that I've been thinking about, just as a result of all that's been talked about, and something that Mark Dotzer had mentioned as well back a couple of weeks ago, was that this pandemic, call it a silver lining, call it an opportunity, but it's heightened the awareness of our dependence on outside resources for our basic goods that we consume on a daily basis. What do you gentlemen think there are, as far as opportunities go for Waller County, for the possibility of some of those manufacturing facilities for just your basic goods like toilet paper and paper towels and toothpaste and Clorox wipes and things of that nature, coming there to Waller County, knowing that Waller County is positioned extremely well for an industrial base, not to mention manufacturing, but also for warehousing. What are y'all's thoughts about that?
Well, again, going back, I think it would not surprise me in the least bit. And when you look at where Waller County is in our position, I mean, our close proximity to the entire Houston region, which, I mean, just Harris County is 4.6 million people. The region is, I don't know how large the entire region is, but then also you have access within 2 hours, you're in Austin, College Station, Waco. That positions you. I mean, there's a reason why you've got companies like Southern Glacier that located in Katy, because I mean, they can reach out and cover the entire southeast region of Texas from that one location. So likewise, if you're gonna produce a basic commodity, that you want to be able to deliver that commodity quickly, or ramp up and deliver quickly, I think Waller County is probably the place to be honest.
Vince, what are your thoughts?
Well, as I said earlier, I think this is going to be a national effort, that we need to take a national federal approach, if you will, in getting these businesses back into the United States. Waller County is very well positioned for logistics. I mean, we're right in between both coasts. We're next to the fourth largest city. We're sitting right here in a really good location, but it's going to take, as I said earlier, we're going to have to compete. These things are not just going to fall in our lap. People are not just going to pick up and run and come to the United States immediately without the proper federal level tax incentives, without the federal level programs and tax credits, whatever it's going to take to incentivize these companies to come back into the United States. I think it's going to take that level of effort, local levels of effort. It's going to take everybody working together to do this. But I think there's going to be, I'm hoping, I'm just really hoping that this is a good wake-up call for the entire world, that we cannot rely on one country, in particular this country, in my personal humble opinion, to supply the world's pharmaceuticals. Clearly, we've learned that lesson. To supply so many other things around the world, the supply chain, we have really sort of sold our souls to this particular country and its political ideologies. And for me, we have to take it back home. America, made in America, should mean something. And I'm hoping Waller County is going to be a big part of that resurgence in Made in America, bringing it back to America, not just the logistics, but everything. Made in America, shipped from America, and provided right here in Waller County, Texas, and in the whole state of Texas, and of course, the United States as well. So I'm pretty passionate about it because I just see just the incredible problems this whole thing has created around the world. And I definitely want to be part of the solution when this thing turns around the other direction.
Yeah, God bless America. And as Dan Patrick says, God bless the great state of Texas. So I know we're running out of time, gentlemen. We'll wrap up here real quickly, but one last final question, kind of tailing in on the comment, Vince, that you've made about competing for these opportunities and being where we are, as you said, between the two coasts and on the Gulf Coast, and with the great resources we have down there on the coast with our ports. If you gentlemen will allow me, share with me what y'all's thoughts are about the future of Highway 36A.
Well, Jim, I'd be happy to do that. 36A has been something. Obviously, it's been under consideration and on the, in everybody's minds. I know with the 36A Association and so forth for some time. I will tell you where Waller County is on 36A specifically. One, when you go back and look at the strategic planning process we went through and our mobility process, what people in Waller County said is they understood that we're going to have high and medium density, particularly around the major highways, so I-10 and 290. A lot of folks in Waller County wanted us to do the best we can to preserve and protect the natural resources in the middle of the county and in the north end of the county. Now with 36A, my current update on 36A was TxDOT was supposed to be doing feasibility studies. And when I spoke to TxDOT, and this was before they started the studies, which would have been early last year, I was assured by those folks and by Alan Clark at HGAC that they were really going to start with a clean slate. And they were looking from Grand Parkway all the way out past to Austin County with Highway 36 from a feasibility standpoint. My understanding is since then, that study has kind of dragged on a little bit. The last that I've heard, I was asked by folks in Fort Bend County if we had a problem with them focusing more on the portion all the way up to I-10 at this point, because they're up against the clock in terms of preserving right-of-way in Fort Bend County, which I can understand. And we didn't have any issue with that as well. Now, looking forward, what is that going to look like if 36A gets to I-10? Obviously, it could create some issues for Waller County with a lot of trucks on our FM roads if we do nothing. If we do build a facility, the question then becomes, how do we build a facility that preserves and protects that natural resource in the middle of the county? And what is that going to look like? Is it just going to be kind of a an express thing that moves the trucks from point A to point B, gets them from I-10 to 290 access? Because then, you run into that situation where, is it going to be a Grand Parkway where, as soon as you build it, what happens? They will come, right? Mm-hmm. And you have tremendous development and growth. And so, I think the question's still out there as to where is this facility going to be located? Does it need to be in Waller County, or can it be further out in Austin County? Where is that next loop? Definitely, we're going to have to respond to the challenges that the traffic can meet. I will say this, the Commissioner's Court has thought about this. I mean, in our most recent thoroughfare plan, we did identify a potential alignment if this should happen. It really kind of tracks along 362 for the most part. From Woods Road, it goes to 362 and follows that up, and then kind of splits off. 362 kind of makes a jog back towards the east to get to Waller, and then that facility would continue north towards Muse. But we got to make sure 290 can handle that capacity, which is why the expansion of 290 is so important. But again, there's still a lot of questions as to what it would look like. And honestly, I think it would be something that folks in Waller County would need to have some input in, because at the end of the day, they will have to make a decision. And that is, do we want a facility to move those trucks, or are we okay with those trucks being on our FM roads? Personally, the thought of a lot of 18-wheelers on the FM roads with our school buses and stuff is not something that really I'm particularly thrilled about. But, as with traffic, you can do the best planning, but they're going to find a way to get from point A to point B. And sometimes it's not the way you want them to go. So we've got to anticipate and plan for that. So, we're, like I said, we've planned. I'd like to, if before we get to the point where we're ready to jump in with both feet, I still would like to see some feasibility on where this facility should really be located, whether it's in Waller County or maybe it's on 36 in Austin County.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Vince, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. Pardon me again. Sorry. First off, I want to make an announcement. We just learned today that our application to become part of the Port of Houston's alternative site framework was approved by the Ports Commission, and it's going to DC for final approval by the FTZ board. So when you talk about major thoroughfares and tying that to ports, we've taken steps, as you know, over the past year to try to get this done. So now here on your podcast, you get the announcement first that we are now been passed by the Port of Houston. And that means what that means for us is it's going to be a lot easier for us to attract international business by having them set up foreign trade zones. So you can't be a leader in logistics and distribution without having the proper thoroughfares. It's always been, for me, it's always been kind of what the judge is saying about balancing the natural resources and what the community wants in addition to the safety. And will it be a facility built in a way that actually benefits Waller County? If it's just a pass-through, then we can't say we're going to be logistics leaders because we won't have access onto the road. It has to be done in balance. If it benefits Waller County and it's designed in a way that's positive to Waller County's, certainly its economic future, then the Commissioner's Court would probably have a little bit less heartburn and maybe be able to move that forward a little bit, pending, of course, community involvement. I see it as a positive thing if it's built correctly in a way that benefits us. When it gets to I-10, something, I don't know what the studies are at this particular moment, but we're going to have to do something because once it hits I-10, there's going to have to be some decisions made. And I'm hoping it'll happen before then, and to get the routes and set up however they want to get those set up. Obviously, as a county organization, we take our marching orders from the Commissioner's Court. So if they like it, we like it. If they don't like it, we're not going to like it. But we're going to have to work our way through that process. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a good decision, regardless of where it ultimately ends up.
Yeah, it's very great points on both sides. It's it's very sensitive and it needs to be done right, and that's what everybody really truly wants, because everybody at all levels I know want it to only be a tremendous asset to the region and for its purpose. So, but not really quite sure when it will ever be built. I'm not sure that it'll be in my lifetime, but who knows? We'll see. Just got to still continue to take it one day at a time. So, well, gentlemen, that brings us to a close here. I know we've taken just a little bit more time than what you guys have been generous to commit to us. We thank y'all very, very much, Judge and Vince, for joining us for our second podcast in our podcast series for EHRA Engineering called The Ground Down. We certainly appreciate, I want to echo Sivaji's comments about we sincerely appreciate y'all's leadership and the sacrifices that you gentlemen make in order to continue to grow the region and make our communities what they are and places that are wonderful to work, live, and play. So please stay healthy. And to all of those that are tuned in or are watching this podcast, please stay tuned in the future for more podcast series from EHRA Engineering called The Ground Down. So, gentlemen, thank y'all very much. Y'all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Hey, Jim, thank you so much for having us on. We always love the opportunity to talk about Waller County, and I just want to congratulate you and EHRA. I know this is y'all's second podcast, but man, y'all really hit it out of the park. This is the best podcast to date, I think.
Well, thank you. It's because of y'all, and it's all made possible by our incredible marketing team, which wouldn't be possible without the excellent efforts and hard work of all of them. So, but thank you very much. So again, thank y'all for joining us. We appreciate y'all. Y'all stay dry and stay safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you guys here soon.
We hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. If you would like to hear more episodes of The Ground Down, please visit www.ehrainc.com for updates. Make sure to check out EHRA Engineering on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube for all kinds of cool content.